Hi team, welcome to Foxfire Chat. So Nick Ashman and I just going to spitball some ideas. We're going to start with the Everest on Saturday. Obviously, Nick Ashman, Ying Rising comes from Hong Kong. It was 14 from 16. It was the big wrap on the horse. It ended up from a fixed odds perspective, drifting sort of from $1.50 probably before the trial on Tuesday, ends up SPing around $2. The world tote pool, much shorter than that, I think around $1.50, something like that, which we clearly identified and said, if you're going to back this horse, make sure you back it right at the death, fixed odds. It's going to be your best bet. So if you did do that, you'd have more in your pocket than if you did some other methodology. What I'm saying is either backed it early or backed it on the tote. What do we make of the whole race? Because it looked breathtaking.
Yeah, it was unreal, wasn't it? I mean, the figures out of it, nothing flashed, but it's not always about the data, Jules. It's about the race itself and what it's done for the sport. Anyone who was at Randwick on Saturday will know that the atmosphere was electric. I think previously I always loved Darrell and the Valley, that sort of amphitheatre. I use that word again.
Yes. Well, it's this week.
That we're worried that we might lose.
Cox Plate is this week, mate. So we've got a show on Thursday. We will talk about amphitheatre. I don't know, about like 158 times will be mentioned in the show, and then it'll never be mentioned again until next year. And then it won't be mentioned ever again, to be honest, because they're burning the joint down and we're taking the winning post with us.
Well, I reckon that amphitheatre now is at Randwick. I don't know how they've done it because it's obviously a very different shaped course, but the atmosphere at Randwick on Saturday is not like anything I saw have ever seen at a racetrack. I was there with Hutchie, his good mate Jason Tan, who's been all around the world. Yep. He said to me he'd never seen anything like it either. So the race is getting the people, the young generation out, the chant up the straight, the go, go, go. Like you could hear them roaring from about the 300, 400 metre mark. And I took some videos and sent it to friends off course. Absolutely phenomenal. So really important that we keep doing this and we encourage every jurisdiction to do something similar and to get that next generation engaged. The race itself was great. Ying Rising, I think that's probably the best result for racing, that he comes out here and wins. Yep. He definitely wasn't at his best, but that's okay. It's hard to travel and be at your absolute best. As I know, coming down to Melbourne sometimes, and you know, coming up to Sydney like you did on Friday, it's hard to be at your best, but you still got to give it a crack anyway, don't you, son?
Correct. Definitely gave it a crack.
How'd you pull up Sunday morning after half yours at $26? This man, for those that don't know, he was the man who was tipping this thing at $26 in futures in the Caulfield Cup. And I think he took the double from the naturalism into the futures, into the Caulfield Cup. And I did try and call him as a welfare check on Sunday morning. I didn't hear back. The only reason I knew he was alive is because he posted a clip of him partying with other people on our chat group for work. And that was the only reason I knew, okay, he's all right. I don't need to check anymore.
It was, anyway. It was a slow day yesterday. Put that into perspective. But it was good to get that one right. In terms of the Everest, mate, you bang on. Ying Rising winning this race really adds to it as well. I mean, it doesn't probably need too many free kicks anyway, but I think that helps as well. David Hayes probably caught up in all the emotion of all of it, just said, yep, we'll be back next year to defend our crown. I think that's fantastic. If he can be back next year, fit and healthy again, I think that's just brilliant for the race. You're right. I mean, it's hard to justify this comment. And I'm not saying it's right, but the Melbourne Cup obviously has always been the race that stops the nation, because it does, because it's a public holiday and will continue to be a public holiday and will continue to have the most important metric in its corner, which is the turnover metric. It will continue to be Australia's number one turnover race, because every mum and dad know the Melbourne Cup and they'll probably have $2 or $5 on whatever looks good, whatever colour, or something that reminds them of their dead auntie. So they might do that. But this race now, for me, is just gigantic. And look, it's never going to surpass the Melbourne Cup in terms of turnover because of those reasons I just mentioned. But it's just been such a good innovation, hasn't it, the last 8 or 9 years, however it's been going.
Yeah, it's massive, mate. And look, races like the Alan Brown and the Russell Balding and that, I think we could get rid of them and use the money for better things. And I've been pretty vocal about the Hill Stakes and the waste of money there. And so it's important, if you're going to criticise the governing body for things that you think they're getting wrong, that you also give them the credit for things that they're getting right. And they have absolutely smashed this one. It is by far the second biggest race in Australia. The margin between the Melbourne Cup and the Everest is as big as the gap between the Everest and the third biggest race in this country. Make no mistake of it.
Absolutely.
That's how it is at the moment. And for us, for a jurisdiction, for a governing body to be able to do that in less than a decade is unbelievable, monumental. So real big tick there for Racing New South Wales. What I will say is it's great that we've got people up from Victoria coming. There was people on course from Victoria and stuff like that. There was a couple of young blokes that actually stopped me as I'm coming in there, watched this show. and they were up from Victoria to have a
Grab
look
a hold of
at it
them,
as well. So
keep
it's
a
great
hold
to
of
see
them,
that
keep a
intermittent.
hold of them. We need all those people we can get. You should lock them up. They might be in your dungeon, I'm not sure, but
Well, I'm thinking after your tipping and getting half yours over the line that they're going to be definitely watching for a lot longer. Don't worry about that. So I think it's great. And hopefully, that whole Melbourne Sydney thing, which can be a good bit of fun banter, but hopefully that slightly yucky stuff that exists just falls away now, because what we saw on Saturday, we're giving the Everest a big rap. Caulfield Cup was a massive success down there as well. And that this day, 1,200 metre weight for age race, 2,400 metre handicap, there's no crossover. There's no issues that we've been having in weeks gone by. That's the blueprint for going forward. We just need the authorities to sit down and work all of that out and make sure we get that replicated multiple times, not just throughout the spring, but throughout the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Having two big races on the same day is just outstanding and shouldn't be looked at in any other way because it's just massive for turnover that the punters just continually go, I've heard of that horse. And then 20 minutes later, I've heard of that horse.
Yeah.
Bang. Talkability horses, biggest horses we've got in Australia, running on the same day, albeit in different states. God bless it. Just continue to have it. Buddha bless it, whoever else. I'm not sort of part of all that sort of aka religion.
You blessing anyone with the state you're in, yes, they shouldn't be allowed. But hey, just on that as well, and I think what we saw is Ying Rising had never raced in Australia before, right? But because he'd been given so much airtime, both through Hong Kong racing, obviously shown on racing.com and Sky for that matter, people sort of got to know him through watching him on Sunday afternoons. And then Racing New South Wales and the ATC did such a good job. And to be fair, they only had one horse to focus on as opposed to in the Melbourne Cup, you've got multiple entries. But, they did such a good job at getting the customer, which is the punter, acclimatised to who this horse is and where he sits and all the narrative and whatever, that I think he ran and won. And everyone was happy, not just because he was favourite, but because they felt like they already knew the horse. And so this narrative that we've heard from years gone by of, some internationals come out and won our big race and I hadn't even heard of him. That didn't apply with Ying Rising. And that too is a good blueprint for other jurisdictions, not just New South Wales, not just Victoria, anyone else for that matter who gets any international horses out. Let's follow that. Let's educate our punters. Let's make sure they know so no one's waking up the day after going, some horse I'd never heard of won the big race.
And I think they probably got a little bit lucky. I mean, he's a bit of a unicorn, to be honest. I mean, he did have the 3 jump outs here under the Hayes boys. I think you had David Hayes, who's just a brilliant, showman in terms of being able to take his product to the masses. So they got probably a little bit lucky with that. But I think your point to that actually is a really good point for these horses that are out here for the Melbourne Cup, probably in particular, that maybe they need to start, producing a little bit more content in terms of that space that the mum and dads at home, who are no doubt going to have the bet, do have some type of vision or visibility about what each of these horses are.
Yeah, and I went looking last night for replays of
this
all
is
the
a
international
concern,
horses that haven't raced. And I saw, and I had to go through YouTube and that. And it's easy to sit here and be critical, but we've also, as the media, it's our job to also sort of say, hey, look, hey.com, just an idea. What I would do is on your platform, get a permanent thing, watch international Melbourne Cup international replays, just have it sitting there.
Yeah.
So anyone who logs on, spend a bit of money on socials, pump it out there, get it out to the public, make sure EDMs, all your direct mailing going out saying, hey, don't forget, if you want to watch replays of these international runners, this is where you can do it. Show them on almost a daily basis on .com. Ad bloody nauseum, as they say on the 12th man. Get it in front of people so they feel like they know these horses before they line up on the first Tuesday of November.
Talking about the first Tuesday in November, we go back to half yours in the and it'll go to the Melbourne Cup. Now, what penalty it gets? I mean, it already got 1.5 kilos for winning the naturalism. So it went from 51, which is the new minimum in the Cups, to 52.5, carries 52.5 on Saturday, wins the Caulfield Cup, albeit by a small margin. I think it probably gets another kilo. It could get 1.5 kilos again, but I'd be surprised. I feel like 53.5 is probably where the handicapper's thinking. And by the time, obviously, this show gets consumed, that might be done and dusted. But I'd say maybe 1 kilo, maybe 1.5 kilos. Be absolutely staggered if it was any more than that. The number wasn't huge in this, and I thought the way the race shape was allowed Jamie to get off the rails when she needed to get off. And look, it showed great acceleration, but now it almost just felt like the deep breath from probably the camp who, after that naturalism win, they went, I think we've got this. We might have the winner here. And then they just did that beautiful tick over run in the Turnbull where they were really negative neutral from the gates, which we spoke about. And now they've got the Caulfield Cup. They're going to go to the Melbourne Cup. Like, there's no doubt. You're not going to have a Caulfield Cup winner and not go there. So I get that. $3.50 does seem skinny for a horse like that in the Melbourne Cup for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought, look, I think you just hit the nail on the head perfectly then. You know, he sort of almost peaked in the naturalism because he had that sort of winter prep, so he came to hand pretty quickly. And then you could tell in the Turnbull, they were like, we need to keep that peak in the tank and not use it again.
Yeah.
And then he's gone again on Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if in time he's a better 2,000-metre horse than 2,400-metre horse.
Yep.
That's what I think. I think the Australian Cup's more his race than the Melbourne Cup.
Love that idea.
The Australian Cup in the autumn.
Thinking.
That's just my thoughts.
Thinking. No, it's great thinking. Yeah.
He was very good in the Turnbull, mate. He was very good in the Turnbull against our best. So I'd be surprised if that's not his long-term plan. I thought out of the Caulfield Cup, you know, everyone's talking about Presage Nocturne. Obviously, best last 200 metres of the race. Did follow half yours into the race. If you look at the first 7 place getters, all of them bar one horse were ninth or worse at the 600-metre mark. The one horse that was in front absorbing or up there was River of Stars.
Yep.
And she's going to be even better at 3,200 metres. If she hasn't gone backwards from go flat off what was a pretty brutally run race, I went 9 lengths above standard through the first 1,800. I don't think she will go flat, but providing she doesn't, she might be the one that can just put herself up there in a Melbourne Cup, stay out of trouble. She'll run 3,200 metres out. I'm pretty confident she'll turn the tables on half yours in the Melbourne Cup. So I would rather back her at $17, $18 in the Melbourne Cup than him at $3.50.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as well. And whether then we sort of start to think, okay, well, the race hasn't gone enormous. Was the winner still sitting at home watching the TV? So that's a possibility as well. I mean,
that's why
you've got one of the internationals, Al Riffa, who's going to have to carry 59 kilos. He deserves the 59 kilos, but just being able to win a Melbourne Cup with 59 kilos when you do have these kinds of other horses who are quality horses carrying much, much less weight. That's going to be the interesting thing there. And then we might learn more on Geelong Cup as well. Maybe a horse that comes out of the Geelong Cup, in particular, possibly Gilded Water, if it's got off the out of its bed from after the Bart Cummings. So we'll see how
it might have spent more time in bed than you.
Oh, that's unlikely.
Julesy. Its recovery could be, yeah. But look, that's why I went looking for the international replays, because when I looked at the figures from the Caulfield Cup, I thought, I don't want to pot the race.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking at it going, like a couple of years ago when Without a Fight won it, I looked at it and went, okay, I think that's probably going to be the right form for the Melbourne Cup. And you can sort of get a bit of a vibe. The only thing it's got in its favour is in terms of the Australian races, I don't think there's much else going on, Julesy.
No. Yeah, it's the right form line from Australia,
we'll learn
100%.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I went looking for the international replays. Yesterday, I'm sitting on the couch going, right, what else is there out here that I haven't seen yet? And I'm looking at that Japanese horse that D Lane's on. I'm looking at our Riffa. I'm trying to line them all up and work out, okay, which one of these might be the one that just comes out and go whack. I even looked at Parchment Party, this American horse that Matty Hill went and called in the Belmont Cup or whatever, Gold Cup. And it's a dirt horse. And I'm thinking, well, could it be the one? Just trying to line these things up. It's a tough one, but that's what makes it a great race.
Talking about the Melbourne Cup, there was a favourite for the Melbourne Cup. Friday afternoon, we were together at a lunch in Sydney, and then sort of it went around like wildfire, and we're trying to scramble to try and get PointsBet to get their market down in time, which I think they did eventually. But what do we make of it? I mean, the scans came through. This horse won a Turnbull Stakes 2 weeks ago. He went for some scans, obviously, and he's been ruled out of the Cox Plate in the Melbourne Cup. Initial thoughts and probably thoughts now after a bit of water's gone under the bridge.
Well, initial thoughts. I'll be bluntly honest and be transparent here. I stood to win a massive amount of money if he won the Melbourne Cup. So obviously, initially, I'm like, oh my God, I was on the floor. But taking that hat off, and look, things happen in racing. First of all, you can't ever begrudge a governing body for trying to make our game better. Having a crack at doing something, and clearly there was a little bit of an issue for a period of time. It might have just been coincidence that we had a few horses break down in the Melbourne Cup over a period of time, but nonetheless, because all the eyeballs are on it, it's not a good look. So Racing Victoria, quite rightly, at least did something about that. The question I've got is, where does this end? What's going to happen when someone says, hey, how come you're not scanning horses before every race? What do we say to those people? And the answer is we can't afford to scan horses before every race. So then the answer from the anti-racing groups will be then why are you racing? You're the ones telling us that, hey, these scans are potentially preventing catastrophic injuries, and you're not doing it every single time. So I feel like we could be painting ourselves into a bit of a corner.
Yeah, there's the issue that you can just create a rod for your own back by doing this, isn't there? Like that,
correct.
All of a sudden.
There is. And it's coming from a good place. So we don't want to bag RV for this because they're trying to do something that's commendable. I just feel like we could be, it's like the old slippery slope, as they say, Jules. And also I feel like it's almost like they're treating racing a bit like a dirty affair, mistress, or whatever the male version is of it, you know. It's this is a brilliant industry that provides life for thousands of horses every year. Without racing, they don't even exist. If Fairy Godmother came down to you and said, hey, Julian, there's a twinkle in Mr. Valance's eye in the early 80s or whenever you were born, you can have a crack at life down there on Earth. You got a 5% chance or a 1% chance or a 0.5% chance of dying prematurely, or you can not be born at all.
I think there's a few people out there would have taken the don't be born at all sort of thing. Don't go down that path.
No, I know, especially that's me on Friday when Delius came out. I was like, fuck. But the point I'm making here is there's an inherent risk in everything we do. I got up today and drove my daughter to daycare. Now, I get in the car with her, put her in the back seat, right? There's an inherent risk when you get on the road every day. You don't know what's going to happen. I drop her off at daycare. She's got allergies. She's got a couple of nut allergies. Who knows what's going to happen there when I drop her in someone else's care? I'll go down and get my beef brisket roll for lunch. I might get salmonella. There's an inherent risk in everything you do. My kid plays footy this afternoon. He could hurt himself as well. Yeah. So everything we do, there's inherent risk. And it's the same for racehorses as well. There's an inherent risk. That risk is pretty low, but it's still there. And so instead of celebrating the fact that we provide life to thousands of horses, we're being made to feel bad because of this very small percentage that die prematurely. Even though people die in car accidents every day, people die in building sites, people die in all different other things. Why are horses any different? They shouldn't be. We've all got an inherent risk in the way in which we live. So I think, instead of spending money on prize money and scans and independent doctors, we should be educating the public and saying this is what's happening in our industry is no different to what happens out in the world, full stop. And let's not forget that not only do we provide life to thousands of horses, we provide an income and a job to hundreds of thousands of Australians in racing industry, and we provide revenue to state and federal governments that help with welfare for the disability people, for people who actually need money. We provide revenue for that as well. This industry is something that we should be beating our chests and being proud of, not cowering away, not feeling as though we're doing something wrong. We are doing something right. What we have to do is keep trying to make it even better and better. So whether or not we need to do scans or whether or not we say, hey, that's not the right way to go about it, maybe we scan every horse before it has its first race start ever. I don't know. But the other thing is what we know we can't do is scan every horse before every race. We wouldn't have an industry if we did that. And then we wouldn't have hundreds of thousands of jobs, thousands of lives for horses being born, money going to governments. We wouldn't have any of that. So we have to be logical in how we approach this. And I just think it's such a good industry, Jules. We just have to be a little bit more smart about how we approach it. Getting to a punting point of view as well. If you're an 18-year-old punter, you have a bet on the Everest and your horse doesn't get a slot, you get your money back. You have a bet on Sir Delius, you've done your money cold. So if RV is going to push on with this, what I would suggest to them that they do is make sure that they also look after the punter. They say if any horse is ruled out because of a scan result, then all bets must be refunded. And that should be part of the terms and conditions with every bookmaker fielding a futures market on the Melbourne Cup. Because then at least you're looking after the punter as well. Because let's not forget the two things that run this industry are horses and punters. Without either one of them, we don't have anything.
Beautifully well said. I've got nothing else to add, so I won't. Goodbye.